so how it said that the war was going to start it's going to be in the Pacific and in the Caribbean. So the Spanish-American War, although we're focusing on what's going on in Cuba, as I just read to you, that we're also worried about the Spanish ships that are in the Philippines or in the Pacific. So if we start going to war in Cuba, the Spanish are going to send their Navy ships over to Cuba. That would mean that we would have to deal with more. So Assistant Secretary of the Navy, Roosevelt, is he's sending the message to his military person that's already in the Pacific. It's already over here. This is Commodore Dewey. He's been hanging out in the Hong Kong harbor. He sends a message saying, I want you to make sure that you're ready because as soon as you get the message, you're going to head down to the Philippines and go into the Manila harbor, and you're going to take the Spanish ships by surprise. He wants to get rid of the threat of any of these Spanish ships heading towards the Caribbean. So in this little map insert, there's actually two separate maps. This solid line here, this is showing that this little part right here is in the Pacific Ocean. And this section right here is showing off the coast of Florida. So this is the Caribbean Ocean and Atlantic. This is the east coast of the United States. Here's Key West, Florida. A lot of you, when you go to your Naples and Fort Myers and Tampa, that's right here. And so although the main war with Spain is going to be over Cuba and Puerto Rico right here, we want to prevent these ships from getting there. So that's that part that's explaining that, where he's saying that. All right, back to the reading. Page 671. Dewey followed Roosevelt's instructions. Immediately after war was declared, the Commodore sailed his fleet swiftly to Manila, the main city of the Philippines. On April 30th, 1898, Dewey's ships slipped into Manila Harbor under the cover of darkness. There, the Spanish fleet lay at anchor. At dawn, Dewey told his flagship commander, Charles Gridley, "You may fire when you are ready, Gridley." Taking their cue, the Americans bombarded the surprised Spanish ships. By noon, the Spanish fleet had been destroyed. By July, American ground troops had landed in the Philippines. As in Cuba, local people there had been fighting for independence from Spain for years. So you have people in the Philippines fighting against Spanish rule, and you have people in Cuba fighting against Spanish rule. So both islands want to become independent. With the help of these Filipino rebels, led by Emilio Aguinaldo, the American forces quickly captured Manila. Back in Cuba. War in Cuba. Meanwhile, American troops had also landed in Cuba. The expedition was badly organized. Soldiers wore heavy woolen uniforms in the tropical heat, and they often had to eat spoiled food. Yet most were eager for battle. None was more eager than Theodore Roosevelt. Then the war broke out. Roosevelt resigned his position as Assistant Secretary of the Navy. So here he has a desk job near Washington, D.C., and he's going to actually put together a fighting unit and be on the front lines. He then organized the 1st Volunteer Cavalry Regiment. Cavalry means on horseback. Later called the Rough Riders. The Rough Riders were a mixed crew, ranging from cowboys to college students and adventurers. The Rough Riders joined regular troops in the most notable land battle of the war. During the fight for the key Cuban city of Santiago, Americans had to gain control of the San Juan Heights overlooking the city. Under withering fire, charging American forces took 2 strategic hills. African American members of the 9th and 10th Cavalries, nicknamed Buffalo Soldiers, played a major role in the bloody victory. John J. Pershing, commander of the 10th Cavalry, later described how troops united in what came to be called the Battle of San Juan Hill. White regiments, black regiments, regulars, and Rough Riders, representing the young manhood of the North and South, fought shoulder to shoulder, unmindful of race or color, mindful of their common duty as Americans. John J. Pershing. John J. Pershing is a famous military man, and you'll hear about him again when we get to World War I. 2 days later, the Americans destroyed the Spanish fleet in Santiago Bay. The Spanish army in Cuba surrendered. American troops then landed on Puerto Rico and claimed the island. A quick end. Spain was defeated. On August 12th, Spain and the United States agreed to end fighting. American losses in battle were fairly light, 379 killed. However, more than 5,000 Americans died of other causes, such as yellow fever, typhoid, and malaria. John Hay, who was soon to become Secretary of State, summed up American enthusiasm for the war. "It's been a splendid little war," he wrote. A malaria-ridden veteran of the war had a different view. "I was lucky I survived."